So, hello, good afternoon. Good to have full room here. I guess there's like big interest for today's topic. Our topic today is how can policymakers support startup ecosystem in Western Balkans. It is the part of the project of strengthening startup ecosystem in Western Balkan as a part of the Open Regional Fund for Southeast Europe Foreign Trade implemented by Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit. I love this word, Zusammenarbeit. Yeah, it's more powerful than cooperation, and I guess we are here for Zusammenarbeit and strengthening it. So we have speakers. I guess it's better for you to present yourself. Zoya, please start.
Hello everyone. Some of you saw me this morning as well. Okay, thank you. I'm Zoya Kukic. I come from Digital Serbia Initiative. We are trying to move Serbia towards the digital economy and are a private non-profit with 26 companies and organizations as our members. And previously, which is probably relevant as well for this, I'm one of the co-founders of the largest startup hub network in the region, Started Centers, and I'm now sitting on the board of that organization.
Thank you, Armin, for having me. I'm Spand. I come from Pristina, representing here the Innovation Center Kosovo, the biggest ICT startup and tech park in the country.
Hi. Hi, thank you Armin for short introduction. My name is Sara.
Ja se izvinjavam svima najbolje.
Please, can we give a word for...
No, we can't, because I have... Znači, ja želim u ime Kancelarije za Kosovo i
politični ljudi, molim vas, mi imamo naše ciljeve.
Da pročitam, da je Kosovo i Metohija.
Ok, možete vi da ispunite vaš zadatak i teatralno napustite.
Ne, hvala. Kosovo i Metohija, autonomna pokrajina Republike Srbije, pod privremenom upravom Ujedinjenih nacija, u skladu sa rezolucijom Saveta bezbednosti Ujedinjenih nacija 1244. Apsolutno je neprihvatljivo da se na ovaj način zloupotrebljava skup i koristi za afirmaciju nelegalno jednostavno proglašene nezavisnosti takozvanog Kosova, čime se krši i dogovor o regionalnom predstavljanju i saradnji, postignuti dijalog u Beogradu i Prištine uz posredovanje Evropske unije.
Da, možemo mi samo hvala vam, imali ste vašu reč, mi bi da se fokusiramo na našu temu, hvala, dobili ste svoju minutu.
Moram da pročitam.
Ne morate.
U ime Kancelarije za Kosovo, ja sam obavezna.
Možete, molim vas, imali ste.
Ovaj stav.
Ja se izvinjam, vi ste moderator ovog panela, ja sam konferencije ove hale. Gospođa ima svoj zadatak ispred Vlade Republike Srbije. Zato nemojte da je prekidate, njena je to obaveza, znači nemojte da se svađate sa njom i nije dopustivo da vi njoj kažete da napusti salu. Ovu salu apsolutno niko neće da napusti zato što ste vi to rekli. Mi vama želimo ugodan panel, vi ste ovde svi dobro došli, samo molim vas poštujte gospođa što ima da kaže.
Nisam ja mislio da sugeriram da napusti, nego u prethodnim su teatralno.
Nema nikakve.
Hvala.
Repliciram. Stav iznosim na osnovu važeće rezolucije Saveta bezbednosti Ujedinjenih nacija 1244, kao i sporazuma o regionalnom predstavljanju, na osnovu kojih se predstavnici privremenih institucija samouprave u Prištini i nalaze ovdje. Zahvaljujem, izvinjavam.
Hvala lijepo. Ako možemo mi da nastavimo sa našom temom i izvinjavam se zbog neugodnosti.
Thank you. Well, my name is Sara. I come from Spark, from Bosnia and Herzegovina. We are working on raising the awareness about startup ecosystems in Bosnia and Herzegovina and also in the region. So I'm really looking forward to this panel discussion and exchanging certain opinions about startups and positive initiatives of supporting entrepreneurship. Thanks.
So hello everyone, my name is Kristina Toth. I'm the president and the co-founder of the Startup Hero Central and Eastern Europe and Western Balkan networks, which is trying to connect the two regions and also strengthening the startup ecosystem in the Western Balkans.
Hi everyone, my name is Jan Kobler. I'm the managing partner of South Central Ventures. We're a VC fund investing in the region, supported 25 companies over the past 3.5 years. and looking forward to discussing how to move forward with institutions on this panel. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, so we all gathered here together to give inputs on how actually we can make more startup-friendly, investor-friendly environment in the region. For all of you who are interested in contributing or reading, we are preparing also documents about it. So please leave your business card or fill out the paper with your details in order to send you all the policy recommendations. So let us start with this strengthening relations between government institutions and startup ecosystem holders. So what can be done in order to embrace better communication and better alignment with strategies and goals? I think in ICK made a good progress as an example in Kosovo and created some good initiatives that are going into the right direction. Can you please elaborate this?
Thank you, Armin. Yeah, it's you know, we share the same obstacles and challenges towards enhancing entrepreneurship and innovation in 6 of the countries of the Western Balkans. Now, something that I would like to start is that people in my country really expect from the government to give them money to open the business. I mean, for the God's...
Opet se izvinjavam, znači na prvom panelu na prezentaciji je bilo, rečeno vam je, vi ste ovaj regionalni proces, vi ste u Beogradu, znači ne možete da koristite termin država Kosovo. Molim vas, znači pridržavajte se toga.
To skip that part for the sake of the panel, but it's something that is motoric, it's not something that I'm doing intentionally. Sorry for that. People are expecting from institutions to give money to open the business, while we have had this challenge for people who had a business idea coming to the center and asking, do we give grants for open the business, without not asking the families first or asking for the banks to open the businesses. So and anywhere in the world, the institutions of the countries does not give money to open the business, like free money so they can open the business.
Okay, molim vas country, molim vas termin država, okay.
I know that Serbia doesn't treat hosts like this, and do not do it again, please. I'm talking about institutions in general, not for the country. So people are just waiting for money without having any seed funds from the families. And something that we need to do in the ecosystems, or what the governments should do in this sector, is help them or ease the process and different legislations, talk to the banks. Because I'm not sure for here, but probably in most of the countries, startups are not even eligible for getting the loans. They cannot even apply without being 2 years old. So at the beginning, they are more excluded from benefiting the loans from the banks. And what should governments do is that they can ease the process in the legislation, etc. I know that it's really hard for the country to give money to a startup, because it should go as a bid process, they can apply, and etc. But I think that something that is happening there is that it's being created some ministries of innovation and entrepreneurship who can then consider or apply or just approve the innovation law, which then consider grants to the startups, not go through the bid process and help them ease the process. And something else that the countries should do on helping the startup ecosystem is like gather people who have money. Because I know that most of the countries in the Balkans have huge diasporas. Yeah. We have a lot of people who have a lot of money, but they don't know what an investment is and how it's structured. So we need to gather those people and explain them what an angel investment is, or VC, so they can put the money and help the startups. On the other hand, which is good, I think that institutions should more emphasize the mentoring and coaching rather than grants. I don't like grants myself. Something that I think probably because of a lot of donors, a lot of money coming from the others, people are now used to asking for funds. They come to the reception, do you give money? Do you give money? They do not ask for mentorship or consultancy. So I think that will probably help us if we have a network of mentors, because I mean, Balkans is small. It cannot be considered as a single market, because if you count, the entire region is probably 20 million. So we should act as a single market and probably start on exchanging the programs for the startups. We do it with Serbia. We were here last month. We were in Nikšić. Startups from the entire region are coming to Pristina next week. So this is the exchange, and also we'll try to exchange the mentors as well and the experts in this field. I will stop from this time, so we'll see how it comes during the debate.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, like the greatest need for the startup and the growth of startup ecosystem is actually access to capital. Here we have a representative of the only regional fund, more or less, like that's truly focused on the biggest, let's say, let's put it in that way, that's investing in startups from the region. Can you please tell us, like, how is to be investor in the region? What are exactly boundaries that could drive the investments process more easier and could attract more investors?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, yes, we are one of the funds in the region. I would say probably the most active one over the past 3-4 years. Definitely not the only one, but one of the pieces of the puzzle. I think, just going back to your question, you know, for a lot of startups here, raising capital is the end goal. Okay. Where in essence is just a tool. We're just a tool for companies to be able to grow, to be able to accelerate and to develop faster. So I think this is actually one of the core problems in the mentality of companies here, because I claim that money should not be a problem for companies, and I think for good companies, for good teams, money unfortunately is not a problem. We're actually chasing companies that don't need money sometimes, because we're after good teams. And when a company is focused on, you know, solving someone's problem, and that someone recognizes that the company is solving his problem, the company is going to finance that. The company is going to be the first test client, pilot client. So the company can go a lot without getting an institutional investor like us or like someone else. But having said that, it definitely would be beneficial for the region to attract more capital, because with capital comes also experience, knowledge, network, and I think this is something that's more valuable essentially than, you know, the euros or the dollars that go into the company. What's gonna accelerate that? Nothing else than success stories in the region. So I think the companies, the ecosystem itself is gonna draw more funds into the region. Our advantage is that we are present here locally, that we have 4 offices across the region, and that we're on the ground every day. But it's very exotic for a fund from London, New York, Berlin, San Francisco to look at a company that's based, I don't know, in Zagreb, in Skopje, in Belgrade. So that's exotic. So I think first thing that we need to do is kind of demystify this and in a way destigmatize the region, and then then the second step is to actually present actual opportunities, because when we'll have opportunities to show, then the money will come. But I think in the very short run, what we try to do is we try to push our founders, the companies that we invest in, to go outside, because they're not going to build a company out of Belgrade, Zagreb, Pristina, Skopje, Sarajevo. They need to travel. They need to go to Berlin. They need to go to New York. They need to go to London to talk to customers and to talk to, you know, to actual companies that they're solving problems for. It's a process. It's an educational process, but this is what I see as the key in attracting more foreign direct investment and equity funds coming here.
So I was speaking with international investors about why and in what conditions they would invest in companies from this region, and they were often referring as missing like a legal definition of some of the investment vehicles. Did you face some of these problems?
No, I think it's positive to have that. I think it's especially positive to have that for local investors, for local investments. Okay. But for a fund from the US, it's irrelevant, honestly speaking, because a fund from US is not going to invest in a company that doesn't have a legal entity in the US and the CEO sitting in the US. That's either unfortunate or fortunate, but that's the reality. So I think it's essential to have legislation, especially for local corporates, for regional corporates, to be investing in regional opportunities. But for a fund from abroad, from London, it shouldn't be an obstacle, because there needs to be a legal framework of transparency in doing business. So there needs to be some safeguards and safety, and they need to be sure that the system works. But in order to have a special legislation, it's not a prerequisite for them to either enter or not.
Mm-hmm. But sooner or later they will ask them to incorporate abroad.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned that you don't like grants and public money, and that it's kind of like slowing down, but basically most of startup ecosystem builders are still dependent very much on public funding. We have here Sara. Sara is a good example that it's possible actually from private money, from private initiative, to create a flourishing startup ecosystem like in Mostar, Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Thanks.
Tell a story about Spark.
Basically, Spark has grown out of passion of a founder of one of the big companies in Bosnia and Herzegovina related to IT. So the founder of that company had a certain passion and a wish to influence in a positive way the startup ecosystem in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So he founded Spark, and he invested a certain amount of money into Spark, and Spark is actually a startup accelerator, but it also provides free and inclusive education for anyone who wants to join and for anyone who wants to learn about IT, programming, graphic design, etc., etc. So on one side, basically Spark is providing education. On the other side, Spark is providing opportunities for people to start startups or to also collaborate with our corporate partners, etc. At the beginning of this basically private investment of the founder of Ansoft into Spark, Spark was completely supported by Ansoft, but now it's sustainable because we found a model of work so we could sustain Spark as an individual company, and also to collaborate with our partners and expand the initiative, not just in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but also through the region. So I'm definitely, a supporter of this kind of private investments and private supporters for the startup ecosystems, and tax incentives for the investors, not just into startups, but also in these kind of initiatives of creating certain either R&Ds or certain accelerators, incubators from corporates to those kind of initiatives is very, very important. I mean, it has proven as a very, very positive case in our case, and basically out of that initiative, more than 40 startups have been accelerated as part of our program. There were 4 other companies who grew out of the startup program in Spark, so step by step it actually shows results, and I definitely say it's a very good initiative and it should be supported as well.
Good. So, question do you support like corporate startup relations? Is it good or bad for startup ecosystem?
You can add on. It's very good. I mean, I think generally when I was listening to Sara, I think that's something very common in every ecosystem. From our 6 economies, meaning that, for example, most of the initiatives that started out in Serbia, that started out in Montenegro and other economies were also founded first by some private sector engagement. So that was the driver. And generally, the first sparks of something in terms of startups actually came from the private sector, and then the institutions came along, and only after that we see the governments getting involved as well. And in that also, for example, for Serbia, there is a big trend of corporate sector working with startups. I think when it's done right, it's very good. We see big corporates looking for innovation among the startup ecosystem, trying to cooperate with them, trying to build their corporate culture. But I also think there is this thing which is called innovation theater. A lot of companies, big companies, not startups, are actually doing that just for the sake of appearing to be innovative and not actually cooperating. And I think startups should look look into that part as well, like being very careful with whom they work and who is their real potential customer or a distributor from the like big players and who is not. But definitely I think, and I just want to add something that Jan mentioned, but I would like to add on that like private capital from the region. I think that's finding ways to incentivize that is also something that we should find ways how to do, because I agree, foreign investors, they are investing all over the world and they don't really care what is the regulatory system, and that's a great opportunity, and a lot of Serbian and regional startups have grown thanks to those types of investments. But also I think that we should also aim to create our own investment environment, and the local businessmen and entrepreneurs also putting their own money into the startup ecosystem. And I think what we should strive is not let's get local investors to invest in local startups, but maybe aim a bit higher, meaning let's build a startup hub where we will have investors who will not only invest like a Serbian investor in Serbian startup, but Serbian investors somewhere else. A lot of other economies are also trying to find ways to bring startups from other countries to work and incorporate in their own country. So I think that's what we should all strive for. Shoot for the moon and you'll reach the stars.
That's a very good transition to our next topic. It's about inter-regional and inter-European integration and cooperation. We have guest Christina from Startup Europe that she has like some interesting, exciting announcements to make about the region initiatives in general.
So thank you very much for the opportunity to present our new initiative. So the Startup Europe Western Balkan Network, I think, is a very unique initiative, which is the first time the ecosystem builders of the 6 Western Balkan countries are joining forces to make impact and difference and supporting together the ecosystems. So since we started our collaboration, indeed, we received positive feedback from our members, because together we can make much more visibility for the region, which I think is very important, especially considering those topics that my colleagues mentioned. Because in order to make the region visible, indeed, we have to show the values of the region, which indeed there are lots of values, lots of knowledge, lots of talents, which will be attractive for international investors and also for ecosystem builders from more mature ecosystems. So this is basically the major aim of the network, to which luckily all the members are contributing actively. If we can make the critical mass of experts from the region, indeed it's much better to start negotiating with international VCs and also with independent venture capitalists who might be investing into the region. So this is why the network, I think, can be also a very good connection point, not only to the Western European and the Central Eastern European startup ecosystem, but also towards the European Commission, since the Western Balkan countries are all eligible for benefiting from the support activities of the European Commission, which I absolutely agree that this support which is arriving from the European Commission should be focusing on supporting the ecosystem and not necessarily funding startups, because indeed we need the local expertise, and the local experts should provide direct support to the startups.
Thank you so much. You mentioned that you created some kind of documents or policy recommendations. How can we find about it?
Yes, I mean, the first achievement of the network was this concrete set of policy recommendation, which has been developed together with our 6 partners, which is now publicly available on the website of the Startup Europe Western Balkan Networks. And we are inviting all of you as ecosystem players and companies and experts of the region to contribute and spread the word about that. And indeed, we will open the network to new members, because we truly believe that together with more ecosystem players and experts, we can make even more bigger impact, not only for the regional level, but at European level.
We are making like a lot of common efforts in order to make better policy recommendations. So all of you who would like to receive this, please leave your email at the front desk. the next topic is like the most usual feedback from startups that we received about why they don't start businesses, what is like stopping them in their growth, and they usually say examples of bureaucratic burden and slow processes and stuff. So we're not here to complain, okay, everything, but what can be done in order to have more startup friendlier and to embrace this self-employment, self-starting the businesses? It is, Zoya, you can start, but it's open-end question.
Well, yeah, I would like to point out first, before I start complaining, that the reason that I believe entrepreneurship is skipping some obstacles. So I think in every ecosystem, in every state, there are some obstacles, and it's entrepreneurs' job to try and mitigate them. And so one of the obstacles for startups, I think, in the whole region, but I can talk in more detail in Serbia, is definitely regulation. And I mentioned that on the presentation which I had before. It's startups are a global business, so you're trying to build something which will address the global market. Therefore, if the states want that to be from Serbia, so that we can say, okay, this is a Serbian company, then the states should be agile and flexible in terms of regulation and trying to be open towards new solutions which are happening. The biggest obstacle right now, which I see in terms of regulation, is the fact that is the payments and generally foreign currencies business in the entire country. So what does that mean in Serbia? And I think in a lot of other countries from the region, there's a lot of things that a company should do if they receive money. So for example, if you have an online shop and you're selling something, for every purchase which comes from abroad, you have to fill in a form, you have to scan it and send it to the bank before, and that's the only way the bank will allow you to receive your funds. And for example, that's just one. I'm sure everybody else has tons of others, but that's something that this regulation, which is not very innovation friendly in terms that the main law is telling you everything that's not strictly allowed is prohibited, is leading us to not have PayPal, not have any other main payment services, Braintree, Revolut, whatever new comes, it's closed for the startups which are registered in Serbia. Also, there are some other obstacles which this then further leads to, but what I would like to point out is I'm constantly saying regulatory, registered in Serbia, because I don't think that should be a reason for an entrepreneur not to start their endeavor in Serbia or any of other countries, because you can always, it's very easy, it's extremely easy to open up a company somewhere else, like in the US and in any other economy which might be friendly. So that's the obstacle which entrepreneurs are mitigating by registering their businesses somewhere else. And if the state actually wants to have a real startup ecosystem and to boost that, then those are the things that the state should think about. But for example, in those who are fostering entrepreneurs and startup ecosystems, I think are always thinking, okay, how to go and skip this problem and then focus on building a business, and it's doable, but it's not good for the economies.
Any other comments about?
I do believe that some of the best examples of really great startups from the region is a big problem because they are being too fast, too quickly sold in the US. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of cases where ecosystems really helped a lot on establishing and building those startups. and then when it comes to Silicon Valley VCs, they are just looking for some percentage of the companies, then they just move to the US. On the other hand, I do believe that one of the main enemies of the startups and entrepreneurship is the public sector. Because you have seen a lot of initiatives when they raise the salaries of the public servants, and then you have the permanent contracts, and then you don't care about going to a business yourself. And having a lot of travels, a lot of bonuses, staying there until you go, I mean, you get retired. And this is like, it kills the spirit of entrepreneurs and their initiative on going to the business. On the other hand, then you have the education. I mean, in Pristina, you have like 20,000 students who go to the law faculty. Well, how do you want to get into promoting digital skills when different institutions allow this huge amount of number of students going to the law? Yeah. So I think that they should, the education system should like direct youngsters and students and go to different fields of study when they have a lot of potential on growing and start a business. And the other thing is that we in the Balkans, we are afraid to fail. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. It's a stigma. I mean, you're afraid to fail because if you fail once, the first one who will blame you is your family yourself. Loser, loser, loser. Probably do it and laugh again sometimes, but it really stops a lot of entrepreneurs on going to different stages. In the incubator we run, I mean, we tell startups, well, firstly, the incubator is to come and fail. Mm-hmm. And then they see how are the opportunities. Sometimes they merge with other startups. Yeah. I just look, first idea doesn't go well, then the other will go. Mm-hmm. But we need to keep their enthusiasm go smoothly, help them, mentor them, and let them know that if you're part of the ecosystem, it doesn't mean that me or you or him will do business for you. You do business, you run business yourself. Because then startups are getting really dependent on the hub, on the private or the public institutions. Well, I'm stuck, what should I do? I mean, you should do business yourself. We can ease the process, we can put some new really good laws, we can talk to the banks so the banks can issue you a loan, and that's it. But I'm not going to do business for you. And I think this is something most of the entrepreneurs in our ecosystem are really dependent on someone else, and without being really afraid of going their own.
Yeah. Sarah, you have something to add?
I would also like to emphasize the fact that whether we are in the private or public sector, I would like to emphasize the importance of the fact that we are having a mutual goal. So if we are looking at any country here in the long run, we need to be sustainable, whether you're in public or private sector. So basically every country needs startups just as much as startups need that country, because we are having a huge problem of brain drain. If you're keeping entrepreneurs in your country, then it's a one part of the solution. So after a while, basically, if you want to keep people in the country, if you want to keep entrepreneurs and startups in the country, your next step is actually to have a look around, to see the policy recommendations. And there is this importance of us also being open to share the information to the government as well, just as it's important for them to take in that information. Sometimes we are, as the key stakeholders in the startup ecosystem, we are not aware of the fact that not everyone in the government or in the public sector is aware of what we are currently doing. It's quite a sector of innovation and things are changing and it's quite hectic sometimes, so it's our responsibility as well to share that information with them and to just open the channels. And when we see the huge potential that is open there and basically the need that we all have to collaborate, then it will be much more, easier to move forward.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Christina, please.
If you just let me elaborate a little bit on what Sarah is mentioning, that based on the first discussion of the network members, it also turned out that there is a need for further improving or starting to develop the national startup strategies, which at some point should collaborate on a regional level. Mm-hmm. So this is what we, the members, think that could be a huge impact on a long run if these national startup strategies, which in certain countries are already existing, in some countries are not yet developed, could collaborate. And this is how, as you said, open the channel towards the national governments to represent the opinion of the ecosystem builders who are actually working on a daily basis with the startups.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, please.
Thanks. Yeah, just a short point from my end. I think basically the measure should go into two directions: freedom of movement of people and freedom of movement of capital. And just going back, I mean, these two topics sound very high level and esoteric, but I think as you go down to very specific and these micro measures, micro actions that can enable and make life easier. I'll tell you an example from one of our portfolio companies, a very successful company from Novi Sad. It's called Alchemy. We invested 3 years ago into that company when it was 3 people, and now it's 25 people in Novi Sad, 4 people in the US. But I'll tell you how we actually discourage foreign investors to look at this region, to come to this region. The company is incorporated now in the US because it attracted, after our funding of $500,000, it attracted $4 million of funding from either business angels or other institutional investors in the US and in Germany. And the company was unable to open up a bank account in Serbia for its rep office here. So how do I tell those investors, yeah, come to Serbia, it's a good place to do business, there's a lot of talent here, and you need to invest more here. They're unable to do a bank account, so it's actually, they're prevented from actually sending money to their rep office in Serbia. So money coming into Serbia has a restriction of that sort. So I think it's couple of very low-hanging fruits that we can do. There is no rocket science, but just ease some of those restrictions, and we'll have the money flowing in.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a very important point. But also, you made one important point that actually all this brain drain, all this people going out, they're actually like gaining new knowledge, new network, gaining capital, and based on examples of some other startup ecosystems where I was involved, especially in Baltics, they actually they gain so much with diaspora coming back and helping the future generation of entrepreneurs. So speaking of future entrepreneurs generations, what is exactly we can do in education, in formal and informal education in order to create new generations of entrepreneurs? You had some interesting initiatives, not specifically for.
Well, I think it's, when we talked previously, it's a mindset issue. I think it should be in a way incorporated from very early on, from what is happening in informal education. I think hubs all over the region and a lot of different other institutions are doing that. But formal, well, I have this, there have been talks about introducing entrepreneurship as a subject in formal education, and me personally, I'm very against that. The reason why is because it's entrepreneurship fitting into our very formal educational system, being taught by teachers who are the same way they are teaching maths or history or anything else. I think it will be a grand failure where kids will learn what are the elements of a business plan by heart, and then they have to put it in the right order, and then they will get, or what was the year the Facebook was founded. This is how I think it will end up in schools, and I think it's not a good model. But what I think is, it's a very entrepreneurial spirit. I heard you talk on your presentation, and I know we all feel this. It's our mindset is find a secure job and then everything will be fine. So we need to move from that into showing that it's not fine if you get a state job, because there are a lot of other things how you can use your potential. And I think media plays a very big role in that. We, for example, two actually members of Digital Serbia are media companies, and we are working with them quite a lot on showcasing different role models, showing different stories, making stars of people who are not usual suspects in newspapers, and I think that's something that's important. I think also in education, that's a huge change that needs to come to have, like, it's very difficult for a teacher to teach entrepreneurship. If they knew something about it, they would probably be entrepreneurs and not...
What about interactive education, more group work, such as Petlja did for...
Yes, that's one thing. One other thing where we have this standing that entrepreneurship and technology should be part of every subject, because that's you can be entrepreneur in biology and in science and in any other subject, and I think that's the mindset thing which has to be in the entire educational system, not just one subject where you have a good or a bad mark.
Just to add, I think that we should make our kids and pupils go out and sell lemonades in front of their schools and houses, because this is what will lead them on going into entrepreneurship. And trust me, it's not an easy task doing it in the Balkans. Kids might get bullied probably and will be laughed, "Oh, you're selling lemonade in front of your house." This is something that happens in the US, and kids start thinking as entrepreneurs from the beginning. The other thing, I'm not blaming the formal educational system, because the digital skills, it's not their fault that they cannot be updated in curriculums and also in the study programs. Because, I mean, you cannot teach iOS at university, because even though if you have a formal program for iOS programming, then boom, at 12 midnight, the CEO of Apple comes in the live conference and says we are changing the entire algorithm. So you cannot wait from the universities to come and update the curriculum that fast. The other thing that we are doing, and it's proven to be really successful, is the on-job training. The new interns, we are telling startups and big companies, please do not treat intern as a guy who comes and buys burek for the staff of the company. Invest money in him, invest knowledge in him. So please consider it as an asset of your company that you can benefit in the future by him. So I think.
One example which I think could be very useful, that indeed changing formal education is a challenge and it's a long-term objective for all of us. But maybe as a first step, we might encourage more outside school activities and curricula which can actually touch upon a point that changing the mindset of the kids. So I hope all of you have seen those beautiful little kids downstairs with their innovative projects, the future entrepreneurs, because they are participating in a special outside the school activity where they are taught for critical thinking, and you can see the results of their activities and those little projects which are actually changing the world. They could be future unicorns. So these kind of activities can be encouraged and also could be supported by the governments, and this could be the very first step which is easy to implement and also can change the mindset of the kids.
Sarah.
I'd also like to add that the importance of such work, for example, these kids, as you mentioned, started working on concrete projects while they are 10 to 14 years old. By the time they are 20, if they continue with that kind of education and that kind of work on concrete projects, they are actually turning into real entrepreneurs. Their mindset is changed in a way that they can actually seek for the facts that will be useful for them in their future work, either in a company or if they will be founding another company, etc. I would also like to add to this discussion about formal and informal education. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, basically Spark is completely focused on IT, and we had a certain situation where in certain schools kids are being taught today in 2019 about floppy disks. And that is something that really affects their motivation, and it's just not aligned with the current trends, so to say. So we did what we could at the time, last year. We started a certain initiative where we donated robots for programming to 300 schools, and basically they were able to use 700 robots in those 300 schools. So we also taught the teachers, and now those teachers can actually transfer that knowledge to new generations. So that is something that one company can do, and either by the country or by the government or by private sector, these things are really changing the mindsets of kids who are presently present in our country and who will be future entrepreneurs and in our countries. So step by step, change can be brought. Yeah.
If I can just, take your role, but I think this is, what I notice here is exactly we are talking about similar thing, which is cooperation between, informal and formal sector, because that's, and I think that is a good way forward, and I think there are a lot of initiatives around that, schools are opening up, the formal sector is opening up towards the initiatives which are coming, which are workshops, competitions. We have in Serbia, I think in every school, this junior achievement, entrepreneurial student companies, which are all the things that are pushing towards this entrepreneurial mindset, which hopefully will, which definitely will give some great results in next 10 years, for example.
Yeah, I think we're close to lunch, and people are looking forward to the lunch. So I guess we should start with closing words, remarks on emphasizing important things for the lawmakers and also to public opinion in order to have startups, self-employment more appealing and more working as a structure.
Look, startups doesn't speak language. We should let our communities know that startups speak numbers, excels, investments, communication, cooperation, prosperity, better future. So let us just get involved and help our communities not consider language or other issues as barriers of the future cooperations. I would love to see startups, entrepreneurs gathering, creating a single different startups coming and being co-founders from other countries as well, and competing with Europe. Why not as a small countries or a small region?
Absolutely. Zusammenarbeit.
If I understood your point, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think startup should talk about stories, not about numbers, but about stories, and this is what our founders here are lacking. They're looking too much at the product, at the numbers, at Excels, but they don't know how to present their narrative, their story. So I think this is what essentially in education and through various programs we should be working towards, but I know that was not your main point. Yes, exactly, I agree with you. I would just say that, you know, speaking at a very high level, essentially it comes down to responsibility maybe, because we're all taught to be kind of collective responsibility. Someone is taking responsibility for us, but who is an entrepreneur? Yeah. Someone taking responsibility for himself, but not just for himself, but also for his employees. And this is, when you talk about education, I think this is something that we should be striving towards. So this, putting individual at the center of the universe. Generally, as a strict policy recommendations, I would say two things that I've already said before. Free movement of people and free movement of capital. I don't want to spend 2 months at the police in Savska when I need to prolong my stay in Serbia this year. I think there's a new law coming in place, but let's see if it's going to be any easier for me.
Yeah, Sarah, you had also problems with bringing international experts to your companies. International experts, international employees.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes some time to, if you are having new employees who are coming to your company in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it takes a lot of time to do all the paperwork and to actually bring them aboard, even though they are already satisfied and even though if they are coming to the country. So that is something that's quite
So there are actually brains coming to the region.
Yes,
from
we had people coming.
For that.
Exactly. I mean, people were coming from USA, from other countries, basically, and coming to work in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And there was a procedure of around month and a half of dealing with the paperwork. So yes, and basically, when it comes to the conclusion, I would like to say that the fact is that we have a certain amount of resources, and we already have resources or a path how to get there, how to get those resources. So it is our responsibility to just connect and collaborate and, you know, just connect the dots, use what we have now when we have it, and then it is really possible to build an ecosystem in this region which will be able to connect on a much larger scale with other ecosystems and basically the European ecosystem as well, and function as a proper entity. So yeah.
Perfect. Before we close this, I promised to give a word to the audience if there is any additional questions or comments. Okay. They're hungry. So let's round it up. Thank you everyone for having this fruitful discussion. Looking forward for improving the startup ecosystem of the region.